killing it. We'll figure out the controls the hard way.
Once upon a time, the infamous rover Reynardo plundered the floating isles. Then his mother called him to her deathbed. "Swear to me that you won't die on the gallows," she rasped. Reluctantly, he swore. And he whiled away his days at home with music, cards, and wine. But the Emperor had changed. He'd been good once, a shy, almost humble toad. He'd built universities. But then people started whispering about mass graves in the woods, midnight rituals, victims screaming. The Imperial Ravens would round up entire villages, and no one ever returned. The Ravens had come to Ubar scouting for ancient books said to be of great power. But the librarians had hidden the books, so they'd burnt the librarians. The citizens, outraged, had driven them off. The Ravens had come back with dropships. The kid had fled with one of those books. He was brave and dumb and wanted to join the rebellion. And Reynardo had promised his mother he'd protect him. The kid was looking down, watching his city burn. "Sorry, kid," Reynardo told the kid. "Look, if we give them the book, they'll leave you alone." "My mother died for this book!" "I promised her I'd protect you." Oh, damn it. The kid had run off. With the book, of course. So Reynardo had to run after him.
Protect Peter. Who's Peter?
The two ravens were staring at the kid like he was their dinner, which probably was what was in their tiny brains. "Hey," Reynardo said. They cocked their heads at him. "Pick on someone as ugly as you." Wait, that didn't come out right. "For the Emperor!" The ravens cawed and rushed at him.
Alright, the counter section's a little easy. When you pay attention.
A dropship flew overhead. He hoped they hadn't noticed him. The kid.
Likes to grab, how to aim, likes to throw. Everybody's getting thrown off.
Oh, right. The Gate of Heroes. Someone's idea of a joke, making the Skyship docks a gated community. You needed a hero's sword to open it. And the kid was on the other side of the gate. "Who let you through? Promise me you'll take the book to the rebels, or I'm gonna steal your ship." "I'm not taking that damn book anywhere, and neither are you." "Try and stop me," laughed the kid. "I bet you don't even have a hero sword." And with that, the kid hopped away. Had to hand it to the kid. He was an idiot, but he had guts.
Wrong
Where
sword.
was Reynardo going to get a hero sword?
His chest, maybe?
Ore and wind essence? Perfect. A hero sword. QED. This is what he got for settling down and finding people to care about. The kid's mum had been a swell cook, and she'd laughed at Renado's jokes, even when he didn't know he'd made one. And then the ravens had come to burn her. And she'd made him promise to protect the kid. But she never told him where the book was. Just the kid.
Spin to win. Spin you did. So all you gotta do is spin and you get an achievement? Okay.
He came up to a ledge. It was too far to jump. There'd been a bridge here before, hadn't there? And there was Peter, giggling at him. "How'd you get across?" he asked the kid. "Where'd you find a hook?" "I hopped," said the kid. Wise-ass kid. "Hey, look out behind you!" "Q," said Renado. Ah, ravens. It was time to talk some sense into the kid. Just hook his way across the ledge and chase the kid down. Thing was, he hadn't used his hook since he'd retired. Damn it. Maybe if he meditated at that altar there, he'd remember his old skills.
Oh, there's a skill tree.
It was starting to come back to him. Something you never completely forgot, like how to freeze time when attacking. The more he fought, the more he'd probably remember. And there was the Farfarer. She was the fastest ship he'd ever known. She could do the Kestra run in 12 furlongs. Well, so the salesman had told him. And something told him the kid was about to walk into an ambush. "Stop!" he shouted. "I'm not giving you the book!" shouted the kid, and took off. "No! Peter!" But the kid ran for it, and a goggler nailed him with its ivy. The book was unburned. Next to it were the buckles from the kid's shoes, and a kid-sized pile of ashes. Damn it, why hadn't he lied and told the kid he'd take the book to the rebels? The kid would be alive now. Really pissed off and betrayed, but alive. Oh, damn it. Renado picked up the book. He couldn't let the Empire have it now. He was going to have to get it out of there. He'd be a wanted man. Probably have to join the rebellion just to have a place to dock. Well, he'd hated home life anyway. What was the big deal about this book anyway? Maybe he should open it and find out. All that had been years ago. How many? The war was a blur, and now 3 Raven scout ships were chasing him. "Where are you running, rebel?" cawed the Raven captain over the loud hailer. Renado could see them cranking up their catapults. "Just going out for milk?" Renado yelled back. "Where can you run?" laughed the Raven horribly. Far behind him, another city was burning. The dark cloud above its island was thousands of Imperial ships. The fleet was doing a thorough job. "Take us to the rebel base! I will spare your life!" it cawed. The entire jury-rigged rebel fleet was only a few islands to the east. Beyond that were only the pillars of heaven, a sea of endless blood-colored tornadoes. The rebellion was out of time, unless Renado could bring a game-changer. Maybe he could. Renato had found out where he could find the pieces of the Sky Ripper, the legendary weapon that had exiled the lost gods. Surely a legendary weapon could win the final battle. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino had sent Renato a desperate message saying he had a brilliant scheme to save the rebellion. If Renato could only rescue him. Renato dived the Farfarer towards the abyss. As he felt the heat of the jet stream, the Raven ships peeled off, not stable enough to follow him down there. Now it was time to choose. Lapino or the Sky Ripper?
Ooh. What's the Sky Ripper?
Every child knew about the Sky Ripper. The Transcendent Emperor had buried its pieces. What could have brought them to light? This Emperor, Isengrim III, had once been kind, but he'd gone mad. And now he was conducting secret, obscene rituals to bring back the lost gods. Had he, somehow, summoned the long-lost components of the legendary weapon out of the deep places of the earth? It was more than Renato could fathom. But if he could find a legendary weapon, he would use it. As he set foot on the island, Renato could not help but feel a tinge of guilt. He'd left Lapino behind. He hoped the Mad Rabbit had somehow escaped the Ravens. He hoped they hadn't eaten him. If they had, he hoped they hadn't eaten him alive. Why had he chosen the Sky Ripper? Renato never made plans that required constant vigilance. He was a hero. He didn't think too much. He just went with his gut and hoped it all worked out. The Sky Ripper was a long shot. He'd have to devote himself to it. No side journeys, no rescuing old friends. That was against his nature. Could he stick with it?
What's this way? This is probably the way I have to go.
If I craft a sword now, it's going to be really short.
I don't have any gems. Can't socket anything.
Two eyes good. One eye dead. The people who had built this castle, did they even know what monstrous weapon lay hidden within their walls? The Sky Ripper could destroy anything it touched, or so the legend said. As the Transcendent Emperor had fought the lost gods, thousands of thousands had died. But Renato had been through wars. The only merciful war was a short one.
Ah, no skill points.
Renato's blood was up. He just needed to smash something.
Long sword.
his old tricks. And some new ones. Now, he really ought to ask for a raise.
So I can't go backwards.
Hero wall, hero sword, ice wall, ice cube.
Oh, snap.
Hey, why don't you guys fight in groups? Oh, I know. Because there's no I in team. Puzzle. We're not allowed puzzles. Except when you couldn't figure them out. On the other hand, if there was a puzzle, it was probably meant to keep people away from something good.
That was actually fairly easy.
Who needed bridges anyway?
Apparently I can get
It was
dash.
starting to come back to him. Something you never completely forgot. Like how to freeze time when attacking. The more he fought, the more he'd probably remember. There it was. Skyripper's armature. The stuff that dreams are made of. Engineers' dreams, anyway. The device was intricate. No one alive had the skill to make a thing like it. How was it part of a weapon at all? He'd have to ask a scientist. But first, he'd get the second piece. Skyripper had a heart. A core that had come to rest on the next island. Well, there was another island he could reach.
Oh, here we go.
Zenobia had just invaded
More
it with her
decisions,
father's Raven
more choices.
battalions. She must be encamped there still. But fighting Zenobia now, that made no sense at all. He'd already sacrificed one friend to get this armature, was it? He didn't need to hurry to face her. She would find him.
Alright, so choices. I can go this way. Okay, so
no-brainer.
We keep
He'd
going for the Sky
sacrificed
Ripper.
his old friend Lapino to get the armature. And the armature was useless by itself, only a series of coils and wheels. War demanded sacrifices, and he would make more before the end. He would have to choose the greatest good, no matter how much it cost him. Zenobia. Well, he would see her sooner or later, across a battlefield or a sword's point before all this was over. He was sure of that. The power was in the core. Obviously, he had to get the core.
I mean, obviously, you had to get the core.
He looked up at the old trees around him. They were so big and so old.
I'm not
They'd been there
tired.
before he was born, and they'd be there after he'd passed into legend. Was he confronting his own unimportance? What had got into him? He was no philosopher. Anyway, who cares? He was plenty important. He was a hero, and soon he'd prove it. This chest was really horrible. Get it?
Should I have jumped in?
I wonder what I could make with all these sword crafting materials, thought Renato. There was something sour in the air. Like the earth had ruptured over something that had been fermenting for a very long time. And this is why heroes are called dashing, Renato thought. See? Dashing. Get it?
Like I'm playing Smash. Oh no, sweetheart, I'm not going to bed 3 hours ago.
There were fewer and fewer trees. There were only these huge crystalline growths. Had those been here before? He no longer heard birds except for the feverish cawing of the ravens when they attacked. He couldn't smell the small animals of the forest, the mice and rabbits. Where had they gone? And he was getting hungry too. This was an unhealthy place to be.
I feel him on the hungry part.
He missed his old skills. He welcomed them back like he was at a reunion.
Maybe why am I streaming? G for G means gamers forgiving.
The 20-sided core made him feel physically sick. Once he had sneaked into a temple of the dark arts, and he hadn't liked what he smelt and saw there. This felt like that. As quick as he could, he wrangled the icosahedron into the armature. The wheels began to spin, then glow. The sick feeling quickly spun away. Now he only felt sad. He had lost good friends for this war apparatus. He carried his prize back to the Farfarer. Now he had to make his next move. There was a key Imperial outpost on the Nexus. If this really was some sort of super weapon, he could use it to wreak havoc on the enemy. And if it wasn't, well, better to know that before the final battle. But maybe he should show it to some scientists first. There was an observatory on the Nexus. Maybe he should go there before he fired it.
We're gonna keep
never
going with the
been
bottom
much
option.
of a student. At Swordfu School, he'd never read the books, just looked at the pictures. And Zenobia. But weapons he understood. His gut told him that the Sky Ripper would work great. He would use it to take out the Imperial outpost. And what's the worst that could happen? The thing wouldn't work, and then he'd take it to the scientists, right? Exactly. As he set out down the path, Renato wondered why the parts of the Sky River had only surfaced now, thousands of years after the Transcendent Emperor had discarded it. This Emperor, Isengrim III, had performed terrible, bloodthirsty rituals to invoke the lost gods. Perhaps that was bringing up lost artifacts. How perfect, then, that the Sky Ripper would reappear to be his distraction.
Once, he'd found a Superman issue #1 in mint condition in a jar he'd broken. He planned to keep breaking things until he had the whole series.
I didn't even play it for 2 hours. I played it for maybe an hour. Yeah, it was about an hour, I'll say.
He was sort of yanking his own chain, wasn't he?
Oh, and I'm glad I came back because I missed something. What is that?
Get all the ingredients for a pretty nifty sword.
was tired of slaughtering ravens. Maybe it was time to test out the new weapon. He turned a knob on the Sky Ripper. It made strange mechanical noises. The wheels spun faster. It began to hum.
The Sky Ripper was following his orders. At least it acknowledged him as the master. But there was no trigger. How was he supposed to fire it? Fire, he said. Nothing happened. Well, maybe it just needed to warm up. After all, it hadn't been fired in thousands of years.
A crafting bench. Bernardo wondered what he could make with it.
Do I want to make this or no? No, I think I'll just stick with this one. Oh, dick.
The Sky Ripper was making a whining noise now, and its wheels were spinning so fast he could no longer see them.
Bernardo had a thought. Please? He asked. The Sky Ripper began to glow.
Boom! The outpost burst into flame. Ravens flapped out screaming, wings on fire. The base was his. The far speaker toad came hopping out.
Reynardo!
It croaked, sounding like a toad version of Zenobia.
Don't use the Sky Ripper. It will destroy the world.
Yeah, sure it will, cracked Reynardo. Pull the other one.
If you don't trust me, go see Calaveras.
That sounded sensible. Why did she always have to sound sensible all the time? Oh, it was infuriating.
Of course she would say that. He was supposed to hurry and bring the Sky Ripper to the council so the rebels could actually win the war. But what if she was right?
Damn it. Just this once, he would not let Zenobia get into his head with her logic and her wisdom and her appeals to reason. He was a fox. He'd go with his instincts, and it would all work out like it always did. Oh, he was sounding like a reckless idiot, even to himself. But if there was one thing Reynardo could never bring himself to do, it was turn back on a decision he'd made. Imperials were flapping and cawing all around the ruins. They must be panicking with rumors flying of the superweapon. Maybe they hoped to find and destroy the base before he could put the Sky Ripper into action. The Sky Ripper was whining and heating up. It would be time to use that energy soon. Bernardo felt a little better.
Okay.
Bernardo had been the terror of the sandcastles when he was 2.
There were stickers all over the platform for really hot lady foxes, with pictures and addresses and everything.
Shall we just agree to disagree? Said Renato. No?
Oh, already went that way. Aw, damn it.
Firewalls only let you through if they think you're hot enough.
Good. Wish you would do that more often.
Oh, sweet! A gem. All he needed now was a workbench, and he could slot it into his gauntlet. Talking about this was a fantastic weapon. Ravens burst into flames with just a touch of its killer beam. He was tempted to leave it on all the time, but he didn't want to accidentally slice off some council toad's head or tongue. She'd been trying to distract him. Well, this time, no one was going to distract him.
Kill them all.
Say goodnight, Gracie, said Renato, wondering who Gracie was.
Might as well kill them all.
The long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good. He needed some way to break the ice with this wall, so to speak.
Oh my god. that is true.
As he headed towards the council chamber, Renato felt everyone watching him.
You've saved the rebellion, said the council speaker. Frankly, we were afraid you'd turn aside to save that idiot Lapino.
If you never make sacrifices, he said, you're probably not doing the right thing. The speaker nodded.
Are you ready to lead the charge?
Let's roll, he said, with grim satisfaction. Renato set sail for the fleet. The Sky Ripper had lost its wine. It was humming now, as if it had taken some time to seat properly. He had always been irresponsible. This time, he'd done the right thing, made the hard decisions. He was a real hero. He hadn't let himself be distracted by old friends or old lovers turned enemies. Finally, he could be proud of himself.
He was ready. So was Sky Ripper. The
No, I had to bring
Ripper
my
a
own
will of its
equipment.
own. It picked out its own targets and set them on fire.
This was going to be a short battle. He would set the ships on fire if he didn't need them to get to the Emperor. And he wondered if he'd see Zenobia, or if she'd flee. Wouldn't she be proud of him? At least, a bit of respect. He'd become an all-conquering hero.
If you're one of the bigger streamers that gets the invite here, they provide everything for you. The only thing you gotta bring is your controller.
Renato felt like he was ready to learn new things. Thank goodness he didn't have to go to school for that.
No. Coincidentally enough, some of them do.
When Renato went to the china shop, for some reason the owner was always nervous.
But in this
Really ought to put a
situation, it's
railing
not
on
about.
this thing, he thought.
I didn't think that would work.
There was a parchment on a signpost. It was from her.
Every time you fire, you risk the destruction of the universe. That's insane. We surrender. A trick? Maybe she really believed it. He could hear horns blaring the retreat. Maybe it was true. Maybe they had one.
Once you try it, you're hooked.
And there was Zenobia, wearing the white robes of surrender. She came and kneeled before him. Why didn't you listen to me? I was trying to save you too. You're the enemy, he said. I was never your enemy, Renato. Then she spoke a terrible word and made a gesture with her hand. She stopped moving, covered in frost, and he wondered why she'd frozen herself. Then the Sky Ripper froze, and then, for a moment, he felt very cold and discovered that he couldn't move. The next thing he knew, the sun was a giant, monstrously red. It took up half the sky, and he was in a parched red desert. And then he was on fire.
Okay, that was weird.
He could have sworn he just died. Instead, he was on the Farfarer, sailing away from Ubar. And it was still burning. He'd fled burning Ubar years ago, hadn't he? And now he was back there. Had all those years fighting the Empire been nothing but a vision into the future? A useful vision if it was true. He'd learned something. Zenobia still had feelings for him. He'd made bad choices. But now, when the real battle came, he wouldn't make those choices. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The book's pages began to flip backwards, towards the beginning. And he realized that his adventure was just beginning. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Skyripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Reynardo. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Lapino was no game changer, but could Reynardo really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
So now I get 3 options.
Ah, Lapino. Apparently, the Mad Rabbit had sold a Pegasus that he did not exactly own. Lapino always wiggled out of trouble, given time. But he was out of time. The Ravens had figured out that Lapino was a rebel spy. If the fleet reached him first, they'd string him up for that. Never mind the winged horse. Lapino had apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the Ravens? Reynardo wondered what would happen if he jumped. Would he be rescued by an emergency platform?
Well, since it won't let me jump.
People were frightened these days. Just 2 weeks past, Reynardo had sneaked through an empty town and listened to the Ravens call about the Emperor's new taste in ritual sacrifice. Well, they really needed to redecorate anyway. Hoped his hook didn't break. The village looked so peaceful. Were the villagers hiding somewhere? Of course not. No matter how much he searched, he would only find ravens here. Every day he was getting better and better. Can I borrow that? Ravens were landing everywhere. The advance guard, He'd better get moving. If they got to Lupino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their prisoners. Even top spies like Lupino. Where had the mad rabbit got to? Sorry, mustache, thought Renato. Newly remembered knowledge. He needed to focus. Dirty and bloody, Renato finally reached Lupino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Renato recognized the cards. It was Lupino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger. I am. The ravens are coming. Oh, the prison thing. Right, yeah, see, this guard owed me 53 ducats, so we made a deal. They're very reasonable people, actually, for weasels. Now, I got a brilliant plan to kidnap Zenobia. We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows. And that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who happened to also be a deadly sorcerer, and, oh, his only daughter? Ah, that would be worth it. And it would be nice to see her. He'd always had a soft spot for her. And he felt sure she had one for him. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power. Zenobia wasn't just the Emperor's daughter, of course. She'd been Renato's best friend in Sword Fu school. And you're still mad for her, the rabbit reminded him. The rabbit had a point, and Renato had a feeling she'd want to see him again. Who knows what could happen between the two of them this time around? She knows all his plans, chuckled the master spy. She won't give them up easily. She'll tell the interrogators, all right, said Lupino. Taking her would change the game, all right. The city was already under Zenobia's control. I had to admire her efficiency. Renato shivered at the thought of Zenobia at the mercy of the interrogators. Could he really turn her over to them? But this was war. It wasn't meant to be pretty. Ice walls only let you through if they knew you were cool.
Whoops.
Ooh, Renato loved to improve his gear.
Honestly, didn't think he was going to turn that quick.
Renato hated gogglers, but it freaked him out to cut them. So, what's this plan of yours? Use me as bait, said Lupino. And he outlined a slightly complicated plan that involved geese, a net, setting the Farfarer a little bit on fire, Lupino dressing as an old blind toad, and Renato hiding inside a monstrous watermelon. What could possibly go wrong? Thought Renato. Oh, this is gonna be fun, said Lupino, as he ran to go set up his marvelous plan. Hey! Hey, a workbench! He could try out his new bling. He wasn't that good. Yet. Renato felt dubious about the whole plan. With every step, he was waiting for it all to go horribly wrong. But against all odds, Lupino's idiotic plan worked. Zenobia's ravens ran off after the geese, the net dropped, and Renato jumped out of the watermelon and put his sword to Zenobia's throat. Renato, she said, are those new scars? They look good on you. You never returned my velvet jacket. It was my favorite. You look stupid in velvet. Ah, oh, what does an imperial princess know about style? Ah, oh, get a room, you two, said Lupino, probably sensing the chemistry. But the fleet was coming on fast, so they took Zenobia east, over the Nexus. She'd vanished from Swordfu School, from his life, without even saying goodbye. Without ever telling him she was the Emperor's adopted daughter, Renato was aware of her feelings. Maybe this was a bad idea, but was he letting his own feelings get the better of him?
Told you this trip we were going strictly up.
Listen, said Renato. Let's not do this. Let's not do what? Asked Zenobia. Look, you're the Emperor's right hand. You are going to have me interrogated, she said. Sure, yeah, but then I remembered how you feel about me. How I feel about you. You were going to have me interrogated, but I didn't. Because you care about me, said Renato. Well, guess again, Buster, she said, and she pushed him off his own boat. As he plummeted towards the bottomless clouds of the abyss, Renato decided that he'd not really handle the situation with his usual finesse. He had tried something bold and paid the price for it. The city was already under Zenobia's control. I had to admire her efficiency. Renato shivered at the thought of Zenobia at the mercy of the interrogators. Could he really turn her over to them? But this was war. It wasn't meant to be pretty.
Because I died there, I gotta start it over?
Gogglers. Renato hated gogglers. It was almost impossible to sneak past them. If one didn't spot you, another one would. Anyone ever tell you have a lovely eye? No? So, what's this plan of yours? Use me as bait, said Lupino. And he outlined a slightly complicated plan that involved geese,
Whoops. Sorry about that.
a net, setting the Farfarer a little bit on fire, Lupino dressing as an old blind toad, and Renato hiding inside a monstrous watermelon. What could possibly go wrong? Thought Renato. Oh, go ahead. I'm sure you know better, said Lupino. I need more materials, thought Renato. Renato slinked through Zenobia's ship, making no sound at all. Where were her guards? Finally, he reached her bedroom. She was curled up on her bed. Oh, he'd forgotten how beautiful she was. How sleek. How soft. He tapped her on the shoulder with his sword. She became smoke. And he noticed he had a blade to his throat. Stay a while, purred a familiar voice. Did you really think you could capture me? Zenobia said as her ship lifted off. No, I just wanted some privacy, Renato said. Renato knew she still had feelings for him. Maybe he could just cut to the chase. But was timing right for that? Did you ever wonder why the Emperor adopted you? And he told her why. His Imperial Majesty wanted to bring the lost gods back. They could make him immortal. But to seal the bargain, he needed a sacrifice. Someone who truly loved him. You're lying. She was furious. You can't prove that. I can. And so, they set sail for the Nexus. The scientists at the observatory have resurrected one of his victims. Well, he's not exactly alive, but it can talk, and it can't lie. You took a big risk. You know, I could just cast a spell to make you tell me where the rebel base is. And you wouldn't consider that cheating? She frowned. Ugh, fine. Let's go get your witness. The rebellion had started after atrocities that the Empire hushed up. Renato had rescued a priest whose order had been massacred for one book. He had slept in a burnt village. Dead kittens and puppies had come to tell him what the Emperor had done to them. Renato felt ready to take on new powers.
What to get, what to get.
This was way better than being able to shrink down to the size of an ant. What was that all about, anyway? That was always a rush. She caught up with him. Don't you think I'd know if my father started practicing black magic? Why? Would you want to join in? Oh, no, I'd destroy his books and... All right, I suppose I wouldn't. She stopped, troubled. He ran on. Renato had been searching for a way to save the rebellion. Lapina wanted to capture and interrogate Zenobia. But if he could show her proof of her father's madness, maybe she would join the rebellion. Energy spheres. Easy to dodge, but boy do they sting if you didn't pay attention. Some people are just liable to explode if you upset them. Have you ever felt you were just going round in circles? Bernardo felt like that. The observatory was a burning hulk. Dead scientists and black feathers everywhere. The ravens had taken care to burn the reanimated witness to cinders. Zenobia stared around, shocked. The scientists had been neutral. They had no part in the rebellion. "Take me to your council," she said, shaken. "I have things to tell them." It was what Reynardo had gambled on. The Zenobia would turn against her father once she knew his madness. But the rebel base was secret. Could he really risk taking the Emperor's daughter there, even if she did love him? Reynardo reached Lapino by Farspeaker Toad.
No, we should take her to the base.
Insisted Lapino. No, I don't trust her. Nobody changes sides that fast, said Reynardo.
I better go to the base. Let them know you've got her.
Lapino said. Just meet me at the far side of the mountains. There's a shuttle here I can take.
Always has to be your way, doesn't it?
Yep.
Said Lapino. Zenobia was still shaking as they got out. "I didn't know," she said. "The Ravens kept it secret. At first they sacrificed prisoners, then villages near the frontier, and then an orphanage. Kittens and puppies. Sometimes he'd come back to the palace and it was like there were glowing things behind his eyes. I was so busy." "I'll clear a path for us," Reynardo told Zenobia, "so the Ravens don't see you." This is quite the view, he thought. Zenobia came up as he massaged his sore arm. Her eyes were wet. He's been saying strange things. He asked me to do experiments, and some were wrong.
They are banished, right? Said Renato. Gone forever. I mean, he couldn't actually bring the old gods back, could he? She didn't answer him. That frightened him more than anything. Renato's paws were getting numb. Calaveras really didn't want company, did he? A lever? That was new. Most people still use doorknobs.
Renato wondered if he should have taken Zenobia to the rebel base for real. Maybe she wasn't playing him after all. After the bleak talk about the Emperor's dark secrets, he was regretting his suspicion.
So close.
They came up on an empty shack. He gestured her in. "Where's the base?" she asked, confused. "I thought we could talk a bit first."
Oh, you think I'm playing you? She was furious. I'm betraying my father who picked me out of an alley, and you think I'm playing you?
She lashed out. Her claws sliced fire into his face. Energy boiled in her other paw. But before she could kill him, he slashed his sword into her heart. She staggered. "I could have loved you, you son of a bitch." And then she died.
Renato stood there for hours, unable to move. Finally, a ship landed near him. Lapino had brought the Farfarer. On board the Farfarer, Lapino couldn't stop grinning. "I can't believe you actually killed her. Why didn't I trust her?" Renato said. All he could feel was emptiness. "You killed the Emperor's daughter. You might want to run for it, if you care whether you live or die, that is." Since Renato didn't, he grabbed the wheel, and he sailed for the Imperial fleet. Renato had never felt worse. Zenobia had listened to him. He had trusted him. She had opened her eyes to her father's evil. Done everything he had hoped for. He had taken her to a dirty shack. Was he so used to lying that he couldn't trust even the girl he had always loved? The portal was heavily guarded. It must go someplace they really didn't want it to go.
Renato had learned so much about. Ooh, what was it again? No skateboarding, the sign said.
In there.
Stay away from the other guys. He could see the rebels reeling back as he plunged into the ranks of the Ravens. He'd had to kill the girl he loved. But he'd also blown the biggest opportunity they could have had to turn the Emperor's daughter against him. Oh, Renato could only laugh miserably. He was taking crazy chances now, swinging wildly. He expected the Ravens to take him at any moment, but they were running in fear. No one wants to fight a man who doesn't care if he lives. No one wants to fight a hero. Where Renato went next, we cannot follow. Yet.
Game is definitely weird. It's got multiple storylines, so you have to do multiple playthroughs to get all the storylines, so that's kind of cool.
Hey! Where do the Ravens go? The live
And
ones, I
welcome back
mean.
to the skull.
Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Funny that this whole war had come about because the Emperor feared death. And now it was coming for him. There was some sort of lesson there, wasn't there?
What's the deal with this guy? The gameplay itself is actually fairly simple. Like, you use X for everything. Attack. When you want to counter, you point in the direction you want to counter in X. A dashes. Pretty much an X and A game. You can use the D-pad to change your swords. And you use you hold in right trigger and press X to attack, and you use the magic ability depending on what color your sword is.
was exhausted. Could barely think.
I mean, I'm enjoying it. I feel
He
it's
wanted
worth
to
the
stop
money.
thinking. The rebels were already finished, and he was the last. The Ravens were coming for him personally.
The story
now,
changes.
in
I mean,
waves.
not the story.
It didn't matter.
There's multiple
He was slick
playthroughs.
with his own
My
blood,
only complaint is that you
but it
play it on the
didn't
same
matter.
levels.
In the distance,
But even
he
then,
could see her,
the more
embraced
you
by a
play, the
halo
more you
of light,
unlock, the better swords
holding
you
her
get.
hand out to him.
Therefore, you can
Had
unlock
she
different
forgiven
areas
him?
of the same
Would
levels.
she take him to the
Because
halls
there's
of the
different
valiant?
color door. There's different color doors to match the
He
different
felt
color
steel
swords.
in his belly, and his chest, and his back. And he lay down, and he couldn't see her anymore. Renato stared at the book. He was still alive. Again. And still only flying away from burning Ubar. Had he lived that adventure? Or only dreamt it? Had he really died? It felt so real, not like a dream at all. And he'd lost again. Oh, he hated that. But he had made different choices. And he'd lost in a different way. It was the book, wasn't it? Oracles showed you your destiny. But this was showing him different ways he could die miserably. Thanks a bunch, book, he thought. But these were destinies
Yep.
that he did not have to fulfill. And he hadn't
That's
learned
exactly
anything
it.
new this time. He'd done the same thing twice, yet expected a different outcome.
So like this has 24 different stories. I've unlocked 2.
But that meant there must be a
Then when you're
destiny where
done-
he survived and won, right? Otherwise, what was the point? And with that, the book's pages fluttered back once more to the beginning, and the clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas.
And this is the beginning of the game.
It was
all
time
over
to
again.
choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the
It definitely
Emperor.
has replay value.
Also,
The
a
game,
temple
obviously.
had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Renato. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino needed rescuing. Lapino was no game changer, but could Renato really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Then you can go back and view your stories and figure out like what choices. Try to figure out what choices you made different. The first time I literally went all down, and I ended up getting this story. The second time I went all up but one, because when I went up, one of them actually killed me and made me start the mission over, or the chapter over. So I had to go down. And now I have this one, but
The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters.
The Iblis stone. It sounded ominous. It sounded powerful. If the Emperor was searching for it, it must be dangerous.
And so, Bernardo went ostrich hunting. Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away.
Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now?
no.
Drawn up from the deeps
You get
by
a
the
total of 4
Emperor's horrific
swords.
rituals?
I've just only unlocked those 2. Like, here's your workbench. You get gems. Different socketed gems. Different levels for each one. You can only socket 3 at a time. Your swords, you get 4. Hero Sword, Firestorm, Winter Thorn, and Void Blade. You buy the sword and then you level it up once to level 2, and then it becomes a more powerful sword. I can almost get this one.
The air here tasted bitter. The steps were too tall for a person. The entire place felt restless, like it had been vexed to nightmare under the dust, waiting for its hour to come around at last.
I mean, it's definitely not a bad game.
"So this is yours," said Renato. But he couldn't hit.
Messed up that
Raven
one combo.
were already here. Cawing in frustration, they were still searching for a way in. Good. And he hadn't come too late.
And then you get a skill tree. Each truest part of the story you unlocks a different part of the skill tree. Well, that's kind of nice.
He was more and more extraordinary.
Yes, you are a fox.
I'm sorry. Was that your shield?
The better the fight, the more points you get, obviously. I hate that these keep giving me energy.
He was practically sure he'd find something useful in one of these things.
If you go to a door like this, it'll tell you wrong sword. So, which means you gotta eventually buy the right sword, follow the storyline back, and open that door. Oh, not a problem. Glad I could help. I'd be more entertaining if I wasn't so damn tired.
He wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. They really needed to
And
construct
thank you for the
additional
follow.
pylons.
Oh, here we go. Oh, I can get this one though.
How could a temple to Iblis still even exist? The transcendent emperor had destroyed all the shrines of the lost gods after exiling them. Had it been buried in that long-ago battle? Or had Iblis foreseen his fate and hidden it from his enemy?
Oh my god. I can't believe I ran right into him.
traitors! Caught the ravens.
Oh, well, let me back out.
Renato could feel his wounds closing. It was weird.
Oh, here we go.
The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders. This would be the perfect place for a tic-tac-toe board.
It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up. Who said that? It was the stone. Eager, thirsty. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and Renato wasn't sure he really wanted to be Emperor. Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. "Not the core," said the stone anxiously.
That's a tough choice. Tough choice. And it's gonna have to be a choice for a different day. So, on that note, guys, with everything that's going on, with everything that's being said, I've been live for, God, over 12 hours in the last day. So, I have to try to get some kind of sleep. This place is gonna be up and loud and going crazy here in a couple hours, so I have to try to get something while I can. So I appreciate everyone for stopping in. I appreciate the resubs. I appreciate all the follows. So until next time, everybody, have a good night or morning, whatever.